think you'll understand why after at the end of this call. I've been working with Cam for a long time. We worked at Shapeshift together, and he was involved with Giveth. More involved in the early days. He's still involved, but he was more involved in the early days of the Giveth too. Now most recently he's been working at Pipe, which they just had some news this past week. They were the fastest growing fintech startup or something. They reached a $2 billion valuation faster than any other fintech startup. So it's called Pipe. It's so Cam is working at one of the hottest startups right now. And they use Autopilot, Shapeshift use Autopilot, Bitfract, the startup that Cam and I founded together that Shapeshift acquired, used Autopilot. So he's been using, and he's marketing through and through. That's what Cam does. So he's whereas I would sometimes play around with Autopilot, Cam would be hands-on Autopilot day to day. So he's an advanced Autopilot master, and as well as very familiar with Segment. So this is going to be special.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sounds awesome. I'm going to keep the call streaming. I might have to jump out partway through, but I'm going to still be in the room. But if you talk and I'm not here, it's because I have to change my flat tire. Someone's coming to help me. But
nice. Talking about double tasking.
Double tasking.
Do you guys hear China banned Bitcoin again?
Toronto?
China?
Oh, China. No.
Yeah.
I think it's FUD. I think that's one of the reasons that the price is going down right now. There's a rumor that China was going to at least crack down on Bitcoin mining, but apparently it's just Bitcoin that's mined with coal is the only thing they're going to crack down on, which is apparently already outlawed anyways. So it's over-exaggerated FUD.
I also heard that the administration in the States is looking into some tax stuff on any transfers over $10,000.
I heard that too. I don't know what they're thinking. How they would try and enforce that. Because it's a global thing, right? Yeah, it's tough. Hopefully that does not pass.
Well, even though I live here, I still have voting rights there.
So I can
still vote. I still have voting rights there, even though I'm in Costa Rica.
Yeah, we got to vote against that. Yeah, are they going to try and tax a $10,000 donation through Giveth? That shouldn't be taxable. So I really hope they don't go through with that.
Yeah, I was actually kind of curious because our nonprofit status is with SDG, so that's in the States, right? It's out of Georgia or something?
Correct. Yeah, we're
okay.
Sub SDG of a 501c3 nonprofit in the States. A sub DAF.
Right. So then it actually will abide by Georgia state laws.
So yeah, as far as the DAF goes, then we are bound to U.S. regs there. As far as the DAO goes, it's a little different because the DAF doesn't really govern the DAO, right? Or doesn't own any of the assets of the DAO. So the DAO is global, and there's no specific entity that it's registered in, and there's no jurisdiction that has of laws that we're bound to, which is pretty interesting. So they're still figuring out the regulations for that, and we're ahead of the curve there.
How are y'all doing today?
Hi, Cam.
Best day ever. How are you doing, dude?
I'm doing wonderful. Just been fighting fires and all of the fun stuff that comes with launching shit and breaking shit. So
digital fires.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Not a firefighter. So I apologize my tardiness. I was wrapping up one thing and then my family was going for the weekend north, so I was trying to give my daughter some kisses before she went to Dallas for the weekend. So just cool. So we can hop right in. I guess the Willie, if you want to kind of drive for a little bit and just kind of give context to where you guys are at, and I can then kind of just give some insights of maybe what you guys are doing, and maybe I can help improve that or give you like down the path that I can say that, shed some insights, but maybe what do you guys have right now that's working, and what do you think that's not working in your current email and autopilot journeys?
Yeah, and maybe we can go around and do some quick intentions because I helped get Autopilot set up, but the comms team, Lauren, Forrest, and Ashley here have been more hands-on day to day. But I already gave a great intro for you, Cam, so everyone knows that you're the Autopilot master. I think the intention for setting this up is that we've got Autopilot up and running. We're definitely committed to using it. We're paid for it, and we're using it to power the email notifications for Giveth. So for every donation, project created, really every email notification, even the blast emails that we're doing out, that we're sending, we're using Autopilot for. And I know that there's so much you can do with Autopilot. Like for instance, we just figured out we could use it not only for event-based notifications, but also just to like blast our email list, and things like segmenting our users when they sign up into like donor list, project list, and going beyond just like really basic, like here's an event and let's send an email, and into more journeys. I think it would be really useful for us to see. So I was thinking it'd be cool if we could see some of the journeys that you've set up before that are advanced, and then maybe also show you some of our journeys, and then see your tips on how we can improve it. And I think through that we'll learn a lot. So my intentions. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No. Please, we can kick it off that way as well.
Cool. So my intention is to facilitate and to learn. I'll pass it to you, Kim.
My intentions is just also to help where I can and give any insights and see if I can help you guys, improve that some, and also learn, a little bit more on how you guys are utilizing the platform, and maybe what the next steps will be. And that's it. I'll have to kick it over to Lauren.
My intentions are just to just to get a little more familiar with Autopilot, just like hear what you have to offer. I'm sure, I think Ashley probably has more questions than I do. I haven't honestly been using it much. So Mitch has been doing a lot, and Ashley's been doing some as well, I think. And I have been doing very little. So I'm mostly here just to observe. And I'm live streaming this call onto the Giveth Transparency channel. And Festa Forest.
Cool.
Hey, yeah, similar to Lauren, my intention is to observe and learn and listen and ask questions as they arise from curiosity. I'm more newly using Autopilot. I was there for the initial onboarding, and then now for the project verification process that we're doing with the Givebacks program, I'm starting to dig into it. I've mostly at this point reviewed what Mitch and Ashley have set up, like some of the email journeys and the email templates, and I'm going to be creating some additional ones. But yeah, Ashley and Mitch have been the primary pioneers there. So I will pass it to you, Ashley.
Yeah, I guess my intentions are just to expand what I already know. I don't feel like I've done a whole lot in there. I've created some email templates, and I made a list and put some projects on it, and was able to manually send out emails to that list, which was already pretty cool, because at first I thought it was just you had to have a trigger for it. And then I guess just to explore the more advanced stuff that I want to know about is how to trigger certain things. Like for instance, with our project verification, we're doing we have acceptance emails, and then we have a rejection email, and we'd like to be able to offer different types of rejection emails explaining for what their project was rejected for, so then they know which information to update in their application and what information they need to give us more of. We're also looking into set triggering emails for when projects get canceled on the application or on the platform, on Giveth, to send an email notification to the project owner saying why their project was canceled, and so that they can go and rectify that and get it back up.
Yeah. Can I stop in and jump in right there?
Yeah.
On the account, on the cancel, or the when you get canceled, or when there's the cancellation reason or the acceptance reason, do you pass it via segment, or that is it just a yes or a no, or is there the actual reason coming through as well?
Well, right now it's just set up as a true or false for the canceled projects, but we'd like to implement something to where it would be more dynamic explanation or like have a different reason in there. I guess they just need to be created in the database.
Yeah, that's what I'd say. And if you even just bucket it, just for like MVP, just like if you have 4 of the main reasons or 3 main reasons that are always happening, start there. It doesn't have to be dynamic, but at least that if you push that extra trait or that extra property over, you could say if this, then send this, and that would solve that, and that would at least be like that's like a pretty low lift for Willie and probably Kai or whoever would put that event in, and then you could just tell Autopilot to send that one in the same journey before it hits it. Check condition check which one is it, and then send it to one of the 3 emails.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and I guess the last thing that I wanted to just throw out there for advanced things is I would like to kind of keep in mind now of different lists that we can be creating that our users can be put into, that maybe we're not using those lists at this point, but like in the future they might be useful for us. That was the last thing that I wanted to throw in with my intentions.
The smart segments there are really, really powerful, and the earlier you get ahead of them, the better you can kind of refine them to make sure that they're real, because when you look at a bunch of historical data, sometimes you have people in the wrong buckets, but if you can get it right the first time, it's a lot better. With that, like that intention in mind, what are some of the lists that you currently are using, and like some of the ones that on the future roadmap that would make sense to kind of get ahead of?
Well, I guess right now we only have donors, projects, and I think maybe one other one right now. And we have just pretty simple lists at the moment. So yeah, I'm not really sure exactly, but like for instance, I was thinking the other day for like Panvola donations, the first time our project receives a donation in Pan, we could send them an email saying, hey, did you know if you like join Panvola community, they'll match your donation? Something like just different things like that. So it'd be nice to have these lists already created and like some of these journeys made.
Yeah, and especially if you can just maybe even get those, because you guys are passing that property's hitting segment if it's a Pan donation. So just map that field in there, and what you can do is like run a batch. You can like batch all of those old transactions back through as events to back populate it, or you can just download a CSV and then upload all of the donors who have done that, so you can build that list out. And then as new ones come in, that'll automatically get populated into there. So you could do that way, unless if you haven't already have it. You can do it either. You can, to get it back populated, you can either sync the database or you could just upload a CSV.
Yeah, and I definitely need to dig a little bit more into Segment, because I don't know anything about Segment or the capabilities there, but that's a completely different thing from Autopilot. They're just talking to one another, right?
Yeah, but like they're such hand in glove. Like it's like when you fully understand what the capabilities of Segment, it's like you're bound to what data you can ingest via Segment, and if you and what you map. So it's like the more you look at the debugger and that payload, and you understand what's being sent via Segment, you can start getting really creative, and that's like how I get up to speed on projects. If they're using Segment and Autopilot, I really look at like what data is flowing via amplitude, and or just looking at the debugger and watching it and saying, okay, that's in the traits. That there's a bunch of these data traits that I can utilize, but you have to go and map them inside of Autopilot. Very easy to do. It's like Willie could do it in a second, or he could show you. It's like really, really simple. Just gotta just a special little spot inside of Autopilot that maps segment events, and then you just put what the key is, exactly how it looks, and then you just tell it what field to populate when those events come through, and then that'll start filling it up. And then you go ahead.
We did a Autopilot segment training too, and it's recorded, and we've got some docs in Notion, and it goes through all of that. It covers exactly that step by step with recordings of how to set up. And yeah, TLDR, the high level, the way that I think about like what's possible with segment is any event that we can attribute to a user with an email address. So any event for a user that's signed in that happens in the Giveth interface, so we can track it, and that can be a segment event. And then any data that's available to us, like we can attribute again, like in that moment, to the user or to the action. Any of that data is available to be passed through as a property. So, which means that we can use any of that data in an email. We can either at that moment or in the future, a notification for that user. So, which basically is like everything you could possibly want to notify a user about. You can pretty much code the event for. And yeah, the first step, if we wanted to use an event like that for an email, the first step would be to make a GitHub issue and ask the developers to basically add that segment event and start tracking that.
For the project verification, what are some of the like pain points there?
So basically, if once their application has either been approved or rejected, we would then send them an email either saying your project was approved, yay, or your project was rejected, want, here's how you can fix that, and you can reapply.
Yeah. So you already have like a boo or like a true false right now for that passing.
Yeah, we just got it. They just added it.
We don't have the segment event for it, though. Ashley?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't
I think that's just like in the database. There's just a field for it in the database right now.
And so for now, we could definitely ask them to add the segment event. Until then, because it's only something that happens once every 2 weeks, CSVs would probably be the best way to handle this. Basically, just having a CSV of all the projects that are approved, and then uploading those into Autopilot and sending them the approved email, and then a CSV of all the projects that are rejected, uploading that, and then sending them an email, and then we can get it. We can automate it, but
yeah, I definitely need to watch the segment video. For sure.
So you guys currently only approve every 2 weeks, or you guys only go to like the outcome period, like when you guys do it, like an approval process is only every 2 weeks?
Yeah, that's kind of what we're shooting for in the future is every 2 weeks. Right now, we're just kind of handpicking projects, sending them the application, just kind of test driving the verification process. So right now, there's not actually any projects in the database that have a true value yet. So we've just kind of been going through, and I mean, we had to make the form and like go through we've been focusing a lot on just the guidelines for what is a verified project and like doing the research on each project to make sure that they're verifiable, essentially.
Got it. So in future that will be maybe 2 weeks get down shrunk down to 1 week down to real time or close to real time, or is that always going to be a long lead time?
Yeah, I think in the future the idea is for it to be more rapid, more automated. But for now, while we're doing it in this process, for the indefinite future, the idea is that if it was to do it every 2 weeks.
Cool. Yeah, then I mean,
it's going to align too with the give back schedule, I believe. So like with the rounds of give backs, I think is that every 2 weeks at this point right now? That's what we're talking, every 2 weeks. So I think it's going to be aligned kind of with that whole process. With each round of give backs given out, then you'll have the verified projects for the next round.
Cool. So if it's a heavy lift, which it's not a heavy lift, but if for some reason like it just can't get prioritized to get into a segment event, Zapier has an easy hook that you can drop all of those into a spreadsheet, just into like a Google Sheet, and it'll grab it. If you wanted to just make like semi-automated, if you wanted to just like download here, upload here, and be done, and or just download and go take it to Autopilot. Either way, those are like two very simple low lift ways of getting this up and running right now. And then it would just be mapping the CSV to a list and then having a journey, build the journey with like anyone that gets placed on this list in the future, that is on this list or in the future. And then as you download that CSV, you just drop them in there, and then they'll run through that journey, and then that could be your approved or your denied. And the split will be is approved goes here, is denied goes here, and the verbiage being corresponding correctly.
So yeah, the Zapier is a pretty cool thing that opens up the door to a lot of cool added functionality. Maybe we should get to show us a little bit about Zapier. So like for that example, how would people be showing up on the spreadsheet? Would that
would still be, you could still, and that's why I said still semi-automatic. Like if you just wanted to, you could have it looking at a spreadsheet. It's like one and the same. I mean, it's either or. It's kind of like if it's not really much more of a hack than just taking that CSV directly over, unless you just weren't comfortable going into Autopilot every time and you were more comfortable just going into a Google Sheet that Zapier was looking at for any new fields that gets applied. Then it's going to automatically get put on that list, and then that workflow happens. So if it's just easier to go from download from the back end of Giveth a CSV and upload into Google Docs, which is like very straightforward. And then the rest of
set
the
it
magic
up.
is just happening because of its app.
So what about? Oh, it looks like Typeform actually just integrates directly with Autopilot too. So
Yeah.
one thing we can at least make sure that all these projects are like put them in a list, which I think it looks like we do have in here. We have a list in Autopilot I see for invite for verification. I don't know how it's getting filled.
Yeah, that was the list that I created and manually sent out the 2 emails to.
Okay,
Emails
cool.
or whatever. Yeah.
So we could have another list for like applied for verification, and we could auto-populate that for anyone who fills out the type form, and then also put those like people into a CSV, and then just go through the CSV and put yes or no, basically, or verified or rejected, and then upload that
Right.
CSV into Autopilot, and we can look at what that looks like real quick. You go into
or you could just do that, or if you could actually drop them all into a CSV. Always drop it in a CSV. I think you could do it that way as well. It's like and have like just the F column or what, like a column far off that's like if a new value is put in this column, and that could just be a representation of like when you hit approve or deny, it fills a column to the right, and then that will then trigger the next one. So you can do it that way. That's probably pretty simple as well. Then you could almost work out of a sheet as like you're doing your approvals. As people are coming in, they're getting put on the sheet, but they're not getting until there's like an actual approval, a yes or a no. Zapier's not looking for it. So, do you know what I mean, Willie?
Yeah. Oh.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Totally. So I think it's good to kind of just show some of these visually cams to help get an idea around what this actually process looks like. And I know one thing like that you mentioned that is such a great feature that I don't think we've covered yet is just the ability to like upload, import data basically. So for this one, it would be, these are just example names, but let's say if we wanted to do this, we could have create a list in Autopilot and have everyone who fills out the type form, every project who fills out the project verification type form, basically end up in this list for applied for verification. Then we can also have them pipe into a spreadsheet. Then when we do these verification parties, we can go through and maybe you have a field here for project names just for helping to keep track of it. But we can basically go through and just put approved or rejected. And we'll have everyone's email in here. And then really all you need is like the email and then the field that you want to update. So we could basically, once we have this filled out at the end of the verification party, you go into Autopilot and you can import a CSV. And then basically we would upload the CSV, and I could do it maybe real quick. Just see what it looks like. But what it'll do is it will add these fields to every contact that we have in here. So you know how we have all our contacts? And every project in here will have an email with the contact.
Yeah, there's a gotcha right here. I'm going to show you.
Okay,
so I'm glad you're going through it because it always usually get me.
Cool. So here are these fields we talked about. So earlier we talked about how like in Segment you have to map all the fields. You can also just create a new field basically.
Yeah.
And then it'll be associated. Every contact will have this field, and every one of these projects that goes through verification status will now have this field associated with them in Autopilot forever. And we can have a journey that basically says, hey, if you're on the applied for verification list and your verification status is approved, then you get the approved email. If your verification status is false, then you get the rejected email, basically. And then we just have to upload the CSV, or eventually we could even automate that with Segment, and then we wouldn't have to upload the CSV. What are you going to say, Cam?
Hey, continue. One more time. So this is, you just need to make sure it's on this, where it's saying you're not going to update anything. But the next one is where it always hits me, or I used to always get caught on this next one is hit continue.
So yeah, this is a good one. Update them, but only for fields empty. So this, for example, if let's say we had project name in here to keep track of like project name, but maybe a project like spelled their name differently or something. This would make sure that we're not like replacing the project name that we already have for them on file.
Okay.
Yeah. And
then, yeah.
this one is like you have to exit that one and put the right one in, because if you're going to a list, you always think it's like the right one, but it's like it's creating a new list, so you have to like cancel out that one and then apply it to the list you actually wanted on. It pre-populates the example, whatever you named the file, like it just creates a new list. But if you were like doing this to go to a journey, you need to make sure you select the specific journey. If that made sense, yeah.
Totally, just make sure that you select the right list if these people are going right into a journey, and hopefully
Even
because
if you were on that list, like you started on the list that you were supposed to be in, and you were like upload to this list. For some reason, it doesn't upload to that list. It creates a new list every time. So you just gotta make sure you still select the list that you intended it to be on.
Right. Cool. So I won't actually upload this list, but what it would do is it would add the context of this list. In reality, if we were doing it from Typeform to Autopilot, the contacts would already be on this list, but it would basically give us their verification status in Autopilot and then automatically send them the right email.
Yeah.
If we had the journey set.
We have a spreadsheet like that, so it should be pretty easy to go in and do that.
Sweet. And that is a great skill. I'm remembering now, like that is we use that all the time with Autopilot. As long as you can just, anytime you need if you do need to go back and just add a field or take data from somewhere that's not in Autopilot and get it into Autopilot, importing by CSV is a really easy, effective way to do that.
Okay.
And right now, are you guys like nurturing or doing anything with your current donor list or your people who have applied to be on our project?
So I'm looking now, it's looking like our donor list isn't even set up properly because we created it, but we're not actually piping people in here. So maybe we can solve that together. So let's see, I've got this made donation journey.
Yeah, I know Mitch was having some trouble with the segment and Autopilot working well together for a little bit, so I'm not sure what all he's done in there. So I'll definitely talk to him before I go and change anything that he's already done, but I know that there's a lot of incomplete information already, which is part of why I wanted to learn more.
Totally. So it looks like we're not adding them to a list here, so this one's an easy one to fix. Right now you can see here's our journey when someone makes a donation. There's a webhook, so this is how we get it into Discord, and it pops up in our Discord. This is the event to actually send them an email. Look at that cam and show you what that looks like. Cool, got some updated branding in here. So yeah, we show them how much they donated, the currency and the project they donated to, and they can view all their donations. Cool.
So
we can too. I know one thing we could do if we wanted to is put the actual TX ID in here of the donation. So that's something we might want to consider doing.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
So they can see it on chain if they ever need it. Yeah,
just drop that over to a list and
donors. Cool.
And what you can do to go back populate that is anyone that has been sent that email, you can make a smart segment and then you would have that.
Okay, cool. Maybe you show us how to do that right after this. Let's do that and see if that works. And the last thing here, cool, is I guess we're updating their field with the lead source. This is cool. So we're tracking where these donors came from, if we have it, as well as the first name, if we've got it. Cool. I'll publish this. All right, and how do we do that smart segment?
So the little person icon. And then, smart segment. And then you can click. You could either do it via segment. You could hit the little drop down. Oh yeah, after you name it.
The speed donation made. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can either do it with you can do by email sent, since you know that email has so it's email status sent, and then whatever that email I believe was called, donation made.
Cool.
And now you have 13 people, and then you want to select that little companies as well before the bottom check, just in case it's an entity. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And now that is does that sound right about 13 people, or does it more? Do you know?
It's probably right because a lot of donors donate anonymously, and so we don't have their email.
Cool.
Because I know we've had like over 100 donors, and also this event was only recently added, so there's people who donated before. we capture.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe this isn't the best way if like you have like if you have like your DB that has like all of them and you just want to upload it. But this was like a quick way of, I just wanted to show you how to use a smart segment. And so you can get conditional here where you're just like pressing that button and you're like, and this and or that. That's a, you know, a good tool. Smart segments are really good for when you're moving people through a journey that is dynamic and like someone's in a state that they need to like, I only want to send people who are in this state when they are in that state. And after they're out of it, I don't need to necessarily communicate them in that form. That's like what a smart segment is really powerful for. But
so if we wanted to see people who had like, created a project and donated, we could create that segment really quickly.
Yeah.
As long as we have the data in here.
Cool. This looks like fun.
Yeah, you can get. Yeah, it gets really fun. There's a lot of cool things you can do with this, and I use this sometimes. Like it's faster than going through like SQL or going through like Looker to find like data. If I just know that like the data has been going into Autopilot really well, I'm like, well, I can build like a list of something I'm looking for by just doing this. As long as like all the data points that I'm in there, and I sometimes use this like rough math on things. As your data grows, you'll have a bunch of data points in there. Yeah, I think there's a lot of it's kind of one. I think the point I maybe want to just hit home is like as you look at just like what's going through your segment and you really understand. Willie, why don't you just pop open segment and like show the debugger? Well, you can go to schema first. Schema is like a good place to really just understand what is happening. So you have events, identity, and group, and like these are the different events that will happen. And then when they know who the person is, they identify them with traits. So you have page view, you have updated profile, and then go over to identity because these are the identity has the traits and what gets carried over in the payload.
This has the traits, but the properties, to see the properties for each event, we can click on it and
you click on them, yeah.
So is this like where we would create when a project gets canceled, that would be a source or?
The sources are where data comes from, destinations where data flows to. So the source is like the Giveth application itself. So, and then Autopilot is a destination that we send data to. So what we'd ask is we'd say to the developers, can you please add a segment event to the Giveth production source? And the event that we want to track is project verification. Project. I don't know what the right word is. Verified or has a completed verification process or something like that. And then in that event,
verified or canceled projects or whatever, right?
Totally. And we probably want one event that has the status as a property within it. So in these events, you can have any kind of data that you want to pass through about the event, such as like the project's name and the user ID of the project creator. That's an important note too, is that if we want everything to work nicely with Segment and Autopilot, the event that you want to trigger an email off of has to be triggered on behalf of the user that you want to email. I can show you an example of that right here. We have two events for project updated. We have one for the owner and one for the donor. And I'm not even sure if this is working correctly, but the idea here was that when a project updates on Giveth and posts an update, we want to trigger two events, one for the project owner, but another for the every donor who's ever donated to that project, so that we can send an email to the donor that says, hey, this project posted an update. We can only do that. We can only email the donor if we also trigger the event with the user ID of the donor. There's not a way for us to be like, oh, in Autopilot, like, oh, we couldn't figure out an easy way to be like, oh, everyone who's ever donated to this project, now send them the email when this project does the event.
Okay.
And something I was thinking about as we're talking is that I would really, for the donation for the project verification, I would really push to try to get that happening at the app level at back at Giveth and having that event, because you don't really want the source of truth being Autopilot and or the decisions being made in like a spreadsheet that's then like, I know you would have it, but it's like if you could just make those updates in the platform and then have those go notify. It's like, I guess from like a data integrity standpoint, I probably wouldn't. I would push to have that done in the app, not through a spreadsheet.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Cam. The segment events for stuff like that, especially an event like that, should be very simple to set up.
Very simple, and but it's also it's a key crucial thing to you don't want like that going rogue. You know, like you want to have a source of data, like truth as being like the most truthful is like your DB, and you should have like some way to just easily toggle that in your app on the back end from an admin standpoint, and then allowing that event to come to segment downstream to Autopilot, and Autopilot then sending a notification. But yeah, I was just sitting there thinking as like we were going through this, like we could easily like hack it in the Autopilot side, and that might be like an MVP. But from a sustainability and also from like a data integrity standpoint, I would definitely push for the devs to be like, hey, we just needed some easy way during the watch party or during the verification party, we could just go through the list inside the backend and flip a switch, and then that triggers the rest of it. But at least the only source of truth is your database.
This is good for me to hear from Cam because he used to love doing stuff super hacky, and so I can tell he's matured.
I'm growing. Yeah, well, yeah, man, definitely the hacky stuff. But yeah,
I'll be right back. But please continue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think we'll need to have an event for that within the application anyways, because we'll have like a badge that gets put on the project page once they are verified. So that would be like something within the application already, correct?
I would assume, yeah. And like if that's happening in your database, then there should be some type of in your activity log, and you just have your developers write a segment event for that to happen. I think it's pretty straightforward and probably the best to keep it there. I think that covered project verification. List. Smart segments is the way to build list, a good solid list. And then any other questions you guys are having or about from Autopilot, and maybe like some of the things that are possible and or some of the crazy ideas you have. I love those.
Well, I guess for me, this was kind of just to see what is the possibilities. Like I have a hard time coming up with creative ideas if I don't have an idea of what the possibilities are. So I don't know, maybe if you were willing to like show us some of the more complicated journeys you've created, or you know, just kind of go through and show us like I made this crazy one once, can do this awesome thing, like maybe that could help spark some things for us. Yeah,
absolutely. Crazier ones when I was at Shapeshift, we built a bunch of crazy shit, but now I'm just starting to build these things out the org I'm at right now, but I can definitely take a little peek at those. I'm trying to see my screen.
It's loading, right? Yep, there I go.
Okay, cool. I'm just trying to make sure I'm on the right screen. Cool. Yeah. I'm just going to I have like a presentation open. I do a lot of my journeys when I review stuff without, because a lot of people aren't like necessarily in Autopilot as much. So like I build before I launch a journey, I generally build it, or I like review with whomever I'm reviewing with. Like I just rebuild it back in with screenshots. So this was easier for me to log into faster. Now this looks a little bit crazier, but it's not a lot. It was just for this use case, I needed to check a few different things, and let's zoom in a little bit. All these are time and then condition checks. Just zoom in. Inside of Autopilot, really, really good for whomever is going to be working with you. Is if you can see it's kind of blurry, isn't it?
A little blurry, but I can read it.
Okay, I usually make these like journey information things, and it's like easy for anyone to come in if I get hit by a bus or I don't work with whoever, like if I'm not there, it's easy for anyone to come in. Oh, cool. This journey went from a nomenclature on like UTMs, like what journey number is it? Oh, it's number 4. How many emails are there? Okay, there's 4 emails. What's the length of this journey? Well, it's either 3 to 14 days. What's the purpose of it? What's anyone that hasn't finished verifying their application process? Okay, do we have any active A/B tests? We're going to test first A/B test that's running right now. Headline test for open rates and conversions. When's the go live date? Well, TBD. Has it been reviewed? And then what's the UTM structure? UTM structure for this one is Autopilot _ pipe, which is the company, _4 because that's the journey. Term is further down in the line, and that's like what's the email name. And so example, and I break down the emails like this, like 04, which is the 4th journey, email 1A, so that's the alpha. And then that's just like, I'm just giving you like how my process here, just showing you.
Okay.
And then from a tested, is it tested? And then or is it when was last edit? So for this particular journey, people came in, put them on a small delay because sometimes it's good for, depending on how much volume you have, you want to like, I've always like to put them on a minute delay, just like when you have like a lot of people coming, because at times I've had people go down a journey that wouldn't necessarily, the system didn't catch up. It just happened to me. So I've gotten in the habit of putting like a 1 minute, 2 minute delay when it's for a trigger, when you're talking about thousands of people hitting a website. Maybe not the case with, go ahead.
I was going to ask, how do people get added to the list in the first place? This list?
On this list was, it's off. This was built off of a segment event going to a. So I have. I usually, let me just.
There's probably like a separate journey you have that people are getting added.
I separate my journey triggers and it's entirely another and a whole nother workflow. That way I can just like, because I always have like a ton of different triggers that are happening. So
interesting. So you have one journey with like all the triggers, and then each kind of email flow or whatever, or email journey, communication journey is separate from the trigger.
That way, because I update so many triggers for things, so I just have like literally a journey that's only dedicated to triggers. It just
cool.
I was just kind of showing this presentation is like for when I'm like reviewing with other people that are like maybe not in my account, but I also wanted just like, hey, I tested. Here's the headline. Here is, let me zoom out a little bit. Just showing like, hey, here's my checklist. UTMs are correct. The CTAs are working. All the links, everything, just like everything works, and that's like ready for production. And like I have a checklist that I've physically looked at every single one of these, and I know that it works. So if anything were to happen, I'm like, well, I did check it on this day, and I have like not proof, but just this is my logic on how someone got this email. So little snippets, and I don't know. It's just something that's been. And then here's even like my logic testing, because when you're dealing with like financial stuff, you always want to be like double check your work and make sure that like, cool, I put this person in with the intention of them getting injected, and they did get ejected because they did pass the logic test. It's ready for production. So kind of the different states that things were going to happen. Let's go over here. And like I was saying, like at Shapeshift, when I was there, we built some really, really sophisticated stuff. I just started really building in here, and then I've been so like I have journeys specifically only for triggers. Build Facebook audiences off of these things. You can do really, really fun stuff. And this is like my sandbox / whenever I need to add something new, I don't have to worry about it having any adverse effects to a journey, and I can just like do a trigger and then go back to my journey, whatever journey I'm using, and have that as the inference point.
Okay.
Just like I don't know. Some people might say like, "Hey, man, that's not necessary." And I used to build on my triggers always just directly in the journey itself. But then I got to just doing this because of how often I change stuff.
I like
Yeah,
it too because it really
that
gets
makes
you in the
sense.
habit of adding people to lists, and then you end up having all these lists that you like. It doesn't hurt at all to have as long as the list is correct. Then it doesn't hurt at all to like throw people on a list, and in the future, it can come in handy when you have all these different ways to segment and slice and dice your user groups.
Yeah. And if you like, I just kind of give you a quick run through on this thing. People can come in the list. I put them on a 5-minute delay just to make sure that just like Autopilot has enough time to like get everybody ready, and then like it's not yeah. So if this thing is this person an active vendor? If yes, get them out of here. Are they declined? If yes, get them out. Kind of thing, and then send them the first email. After a couple of day delay, they land over here. I run through the same checklist. And if they are, get them out. You could probably just build a smart segment that has any of those fields. But I just built it. You could probably just have one of those things, but I just did it this way from a visual standpoint. I knew what it was checking for. Then I run it through an A/B test. A/B, how I denote is down all the way down at the term. It's fourth journey. This is the fourth journey. This is the first email. And this is the B version, and this is the A version. That way I just know in Amplitude or wherever I'm looking at all this data, I can say this email is actually getting better click rates. This one's getting, this one's actually driving what we're looking for. No term on this one, no A/B test.
The A/B tests are nice because you can just like set it up once, right, and then check back, a month later, basically, whenever you have time to be like, oh, wow, this email happens to be doing 20% better than this other email.
Yeah, I'll show you just like right here. I cut this one off the other day, and now I moved over to HubSpot. Not my choice. I'm a diehard Autopilot person, but for the org, it made the most sense that we were moving our sales function in there. And so I've the last 6 weeks I've been migrating everything over, and I turned it live right before big press push. Not advisable, but you can see even this is like, here's the A/B test, and open rate isn't much more, but the click-through rate, and that's like where the rubber hits the road, and then also the unsubscribe rate. So something about this language and rubs people enough to want them to unsubscribe doubly, and or this one makes people want to click even more. So B is a fucking winner, and A is not. So like noted. Like that's like a clear winning thing for me. Like A needs to not. I need to go figure out why A is losing so bad. But
how long do you usually run those tests for before you like make a decision?
A month, 2 weeks to a month, and depends on like how much data went through. Like I believe this thing had a little bit more. I could hit it on in 90 days, and I think it's gonna have a lot more. This is
really useful because I've been doing outreach and like trying different voices and different things and trying to just gauge on my own, like depending on the interaction that I get from the way that I chose to word something. But this is awesome.
Yeah, and so like you always want to look at like, okay, like this is like subject line. Like when you think about open, is subject line and or and here. Oh, I'll show you a trick that is gonna this one probably the best tip I would give you on this entire call. This is like a little filthy trick. So I am so happy that we went down this far because it popped in my head. How you get this in Autopilot has a very weird little thing. How you do the update. So how you change what the preview link is inside of Autopilot is hidden in a little snippet of code that you have to, and I can Slack it to you, or I can send it to you in Discord, and you hide it. There's no other place to put it. And like, I found this deep in a form a long time ago, and I've been using it ever since. And this is like, I'm like, why don't y'all just make a field for this? Because it's pretty obscure that people have to, literally, I hide a HTML block right here, and I drop this little snippet of code in here. And let me move my screen over. No, that's not gonna. So this little snippet of code is hiding. It's allowing me to put my preview link. Otherwise, it takes whatever the first sentence is in this email.
So it allows you
puts
to
it as your preview.
customize what it's going to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like this little thing, and you just put it. All I did was I add a block, an HTML block. So content, like one little HTML block right here, and it's hidden.
Okay.
So you can see that it's like kind of squeezed in between this guy and this one. There's a little block there, and you just put it right underneath your image, right before your very first text, and that's telling it not to display it, but telling it to pick it up on email. And that's like how I was showing my boss. I was showing her like, okay, yeah, this is what the first the first email's preview link look like, because this is just this little is a screenshot from my inbox, just to show like, hey, it's coming from the team at Pipe. The test is because it came from the test purpose of or the test function, but tells you just finish doing whatever it is, and then that also is the preview link is generated via the that little snippet of code. So I will send that over to you guys so you guys can use it.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. That one helps. But when you're doing your A/B test, open will be strictly based off of your preview and or your subject line, so you can see, but the click and these two are based off of what's happening definitely inside whatever the messaging is, the tone, the voice, the clear CTA. That's like right here, definitely in the click land is where you can determine how successful that is. And you want to like setting a goal for a journey that's like trying to get somebody in a nurturing campaign. So you have donors that haven't donated yet, but yet they've expressed interest, and you are now at this point where you have a bunch of projects on Giveth, and you're presenting all these new projects that maybe fit their wheelhouse. Maybe someone says, I'm looking to be interested in climate change, and I want to help climate change. And now you have a couple of projects that are specifically in climate change, and you're trying to pair those to donors and a journey. And the purpose of the journey would be either to get the donor to do a donation that you can track. Well, then you would want to set a goal up, and the goal would be based off of like whatever the goal's name is, has made a first donation, and then you'd make a smart segment that's like has been on this journey and made their first journey, and if so, put them on this list. And now you're going to have Autopilot look for people who started on this and then landed on that. And like my initial say was like, okay, well, if I send 100 people through this list I'm hoping I can get 5%. Well, I got a 13% conversion rate. Now that has nothing to do with me. That just has better to do with our product, and like it's people are getting to a rating. But my initial thought was like I was only going to be able to get 5%, and it's proven out to be, much higher than 5%. So you can always go back and change your thing. But this also tells you that like what's the average time to convert? How many days does it take them to get to that conversion, and or how many emails did they have to get to get there? So
Okay.
Yeah.
And with the A/B testing, when it says clicks, like that's when they click the button within the email, or can you
Yes.
customize what it is that they're clicking? Like, could we set it to be like a hyperlink rather than a button, or is?
Yeah, I'm not 100%. I'm assuming it's I'm not 100%. So I don't know.
Okay.
You can set
I
like the
like that.
goal for the journey. That's a good question, actually, because I think right now what it shows is like they clicked anything in the email, which hopefully it's like we have one CTA, but you're right. If they like clicked our Twitter profile or something, then it would still count it as a click, I think. But yeah,
Okay.
can you
Or like the
show us-
Discord link or something like that, it would just all count as one click.
Yeah, exactly. Like, did they click anything? But there is a way. I've never used it, Cam, but there is a way to like set goals in your journey, right? And what does that?
Yeah.
What does that look like? Do you ever use that?
No,
I never really use that either. You pretty much just look at the insights and the goals to like get them to an email, and hopefully they click, and you kind of just assume that they're clicking the CTA.
yeah. I hate to jump. I've been fighting a fire, and the vendor that can help me fight this fire just said, Cam, I have a Twitter with a hard stop. And I'm like, okay. I always a pleasure seeing my Giveth folks. I'll jump in on Sunday and say hello. And then if I could continue this conversation after the call, I'd be more than willing to help then as well. And any questions you have, just DM me on here, and I'll be able to help. So, but I got a fellow firefighter that can help me with this. HubSpot's amazing. Autopilot's my favorite. I'm falling in love with HubSpot. Yet I am on fire right now with HubSpot. So
Well,
Thank you so
tread
much,
the
Cam.
water. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you so
absolutely.
much.
Good luck. We'll see you Sunday.
Absolutely. All right. See y'all.
Thanks, dude.